On a freezing Chicago night, a small shivering cat bursts into a busy diner, meowing desperately and tugging at the pants of a startled waiter. No one knows yet, just a few blocks away, her only companion in the world, a homeless man, lies unconscious in the snow, dying. What happens next will restore your faith in loyalty, instinct, and the unspoken bond between a man and a cat. The wind howled through the narrow alleys of downtown Chicago, dragging with it the bitter cold of an early December night. Neon signs flickered in and out of existence above shuttered shops, and the few people who passed by moved quickly, collars raised, eyes down. No one saw the old man sitting near the dumpster behind the faded brick diner, his back pressed against the wall, legs drawn up for warmth. His jacket was tattered, the kind you might find in a church donation bin 10 years ago. His hands were cracked and red from the cold, fingers trembling. His name was Jack Whitman, a forgotten veteran, a man once full of plans, now surviving one day at a time. But Jack wasn't alone. Tucked tightly into his chest under the folds of his coat, a small ball of fur purred softly. Her name was Echo, a stray he had found 3 winters ago, nearly frozen under a bus stop bench. Back then, Jack had nothing to offer her but a half-eaten sandwich and the warmth of his coat. But Echo had accepted the offer like it was gold. From that moment on, they were a pair. If you're enjoying this story, please subscribe to Chronicles of Wild and hit the like button. Your support helps us keep bringing you the most emotional and inspiring stories about animals and the people they touch. Some nights Jack talked to her like she was human. Other nights, they sat in silence, watching the world ignore them. Echo understood his moods better than any person ever had. When his hands shook too much to open a can, she would paw at it until he could. When Jack coughed through the night, Echo would curl tighter around his chest, her warmth a silent medicine. They were each other's anchor. In a world that rushed past them, they moved slowly together. Earlier that week, Jack's condition had started to decline. The winters were always hard, but this year had hit harder. A stubborn cough had taken residence in his lungs, and a growing weariness made each day feel heavier than the last. The food line at the shelter was longer, the donations smaller. Some days, Jack would give his entire portion to Echo and tell her, "You eat, girl. I've had worse." He had. Back in Afghanistan, Jack had survived worse weather, worse odds, but back then he had people. A unit. Purpose. Now he only had Echo. One morning, Jack woke up coughing blood into a scrap of napkin. He stared at the red stain, then looked down at Echo, curled beneath his chin. Her golden eyes blinked up at him, calm but alert, as if she knew something was wrong. "Guess this cold's really sticking to me, huh, kid?" he whispered, voice hoarse. Echo meowed gently, then licked the tip of his nose. Jack chuckled, then winced. Even that hurt. He tried to stand, but his legs buckled. The dizziness came fast and sharp. Echo let out a concerned chirp and circled around his feet. "I'm all right," he mumbled, leaning against the alley wall. "Just need some air." That afternoon, he didn't go to the church for food like usual. He didn't beg near the subway. He just sat, back against the wall, eyes closed. Echo lay in his lap, ears twitching, tail wrapped around his wrist like a bracelet of life. Snow began to fall that evening. Not hard, just a soft drift. But the cold was no longer something Jack could fight off. It sank into his chest like lead. By midnight, his breath was shallow, his body limp. Echo nuzzled against his cheek, confused by his stillness. She meowed once, twice. No response. She licked his lips. No movement. Then she stood up. Echo had always been quiet, observant, a watcher. But now something inside her stirred. A sharpness, a knowing. She looked toward the alley's opening. The faint glow of streetlights painted the snow in gold and blue. She ran. Echo darted down the alley, avoiding icy puddles, paws barely touching the ground. She turned onto the main street, past sleeping cars and shuttered stores, until she saw it. The glowing windows of Rosie's diner, Jack's favorite spot. Not because he could afford anything, but because the owner sometimes left scraps out back for Echo, and the staff never chased Jack away when he sat by the heaters outside. The diner was warm, bright, and full of people finishing late meals. Echo burst in through the small side door that a staff member had left cracked open. Chairs scraped. A few startled gasps echoed through the room. "Hey, cat in here!" someone shouted. Echo didn't care. She ran straight toward the kitchen, where the familiar smell of bacon lingered. She skidded to a stop and looked up at the man cleaning a fryer basket. Luis, a part-time waiter who had once given Jack a free coffee on a freezing morning. She meowed loud, insistent. Luis frowned. "What the hell? Is that Jack's cat?" Echo grabbed the hem of his pants and tugged. Not hard, just enough to get his attention. "What are you doing?" He laughed nervously, looking around. "You hungry or something?" She pulled again, then let go and ran toward the door. Then paused, turned back, meowed, ran again. "Wait!" Luis blinked. Echo repeated the pattern, just like Jack had taught her with a ball of string. Tug, meow, run, wait, look back. A small crowd of staff and customers had gathered now, some filming, some amused. "She wants something," someone muttered. "She's trying to lead him," another said. "Like Lassie, but with more attitude." Luis hesitated. His shift was almost over. It was freezing outside, but there was something in the cat's eyes, urgency, fear. All right, I'll go," he muttered, grabbing his coat. Echo bolted out the door. Luis followed. They ran through the dimly lit street, past the grocery store, the pawn shop, the old bank with boarded windows. Echo turned into the alley like a shadow, vanishing behind the dumpsters. Luis slowed as he rounded the corner and froze. "Jack!" The old man lay on his side in the snow, lips pale, body barely moving. Luis dropped to his knees. "Oh God, he's freezing! Someone call 911, he shouted toward the street. Echo meowed once, and curled up against Jack's chest again, as if to say, "I did it. I brought help." Luis shrugged off his coat and covered the old man. His hands were shaking, not from the cold, but from the weight of what he almost missed. Within minutes, sirens cut through the silence, and the world, finally, turned its eyes toward Jack and his little guardian. Screeching tires, flashing red lights, the alley, once cloaked in stillness and shadow, exploded into activity. The cold night air was cut with the blaring of sirens, radios crackling with urgency. EMTs rushed in, their boots crunching snow and ice as they knelt beside Jack's limp body. Luis stepped back, coatless and shivering, watching helplessly as the paramedics checked Jack's pulse and airways. "He's hypothermic," one of them muttered. "Pulse is weak. Lungs sound like hell. Get the oxygen, we need to move now." Echo didn't move from Jack's chest. She hissed when one of the medics tried to lift him. "It's okay, girl," Luis whispered, kneeling beside her. "They're gonna help him now." He gently scooped Echo up in his arms. She resisted at first, claws lightly catching on Jack's coat. But then she gave in, trembling but quiet. The ambulance doors slammed shut and roared off into the night. Luis stood alone in the alley, Echo in his arms. Her eyes stayed locked on the flashing lights until they disappeared. That image, a man saving a dying friend, guided by a desperate cat, was already making its way into the world. One of the diner customers had posted a 15-second video clip. A stray cat just dragged a waiter out of the diner and led him to a man dying in the snow. "This is insane." #CatHero, #ChicagoMiracle. It hit Twitter first, then Instagram, then local news picked it up within an hour. By morning, the clip had 2.3 million views. People all over the country were reposting it with captions like, "Proof animals love deeper than we understand." Someone adopt this cat right now. Heroes come in all forms, even four-legged. At the hospital, Jack was placed in intensive care. His body temperature had dropped dangerously low, and the infection in his lungs had worsened into pneumonia. The doctors didn't think he'd survive the night. Luis waited in the ER lobby for hours, Echo curled in a blanket on his lap. He had no idea if the hospital would even let a stray cat stay, but when a nurse came by and recognized them from the viral video, everything changed. "You're the guy from the cat video, right?" she asked. Luis nodded cautiously. I think she saved that man's life." He looked down at Echo. "Yeah, she did." The nurse smiled. "Then she's not just a stray anymore." Meanwhile, across town, a woman named Marcy Thompson was sipping her morning coffee while scrolling through her phone in her suburban kitchen. Her eyes stopped at a thumbnail showing a small cat wrapped in a blanket beside a pale, unconscious man. She clicked. As she watched, her eyes filled with tears. Her husband, a veteran too, had passed 5 years earlier after struggling with PTSD and homelessness. She knew this story, knew that look in Jack's eyes from just a few seconds of footage. But what broke her heart was the cat. The way she refused to leave him. The way she cried for help. Marcy stood, grabbed her phone, and dialed a number she hadn't used in years. An old contact at Veterans Housing Initiative of Illinois. "I need a favor," she said. "There's a man who needs saving. And a cat who already did." Back at the hospital, Jack finally opened his eyes 2 days later. The first thing he saw was white light, the ceiling tiles, the 4 tubes. The second thing was Echo, curled on the pillow beside him, asleep but alert the moment he moved. He blinked. "You brought me back, didn't you, girl?" A nurse came in, smiling. "You're lucky to be alive, Mr. Whitman." Jack tried to sit up but winced. "I don't feel lucky." "You should. You went into hypothermic shock. If your cat hadn't gotten help when she did." He looked at Echo again, this time with tears in his eyes. "I didn't think anyone would come," he whispered. Over the next few days, the story continued to grow. Reporters called the hospital nonstop. Luis was invited onto a local morning show. Echo became a symbol, the feline first responder, guardian of the alley, the cat with a mission. People donated. The GoFundMe that Luis's friend had set up crossed $80,000 in 72 hours. Comments flooded in. "This saved me from a dark place today. My dad was homeless and no one helped him. I'm helping Jack. Give that cat a medal." But Jack was unaware of most of it. He was healing slowly and overwhelmed by the sudden attention. One evening, a woman in a gray coat walked into his hospital room. She was in her 60s with kind eyes and a clipboard. "Mr. Whitman? I'm Marcy. I work with the Veteran Housing Initiative. We saw your story, and we'd like to help." Jack looked skeptical. "Help how?" "A warm place to stay. Counseling if you want it. A job program. And Echo, of course. She stays with you." Jack looked at the cat curled up beside him. She lifted her head and blinked slowly. His voice cracked. "You'd do that for me?" "No," Marcy smiled. "Echo did that. We're just following her lead." 2 weeks later, Jack walked into his first real apartment in years. A small, clean studio in a transitional housing building for veterans. The heater worked. The fridge was stocked. The bed had a thick blanket. Echo darted inside first, sniffing every corner, then leapt onto the windowsill, where warm sunlight poured in. Jack watched her. "You like it." She let out a single soft meow. Jack sat on the edge of the bed, overwhelmed. "I used to think I'd die in that alley," he whispered. "Didn't figure I'd get a second shot." Echo jumped into his lap, curled into a ball, and purred. But the story wasn't over. A TV producer from New York called Marcy a few days later, pitching a short documentary. A children's book publisher contacted Luis. Animal shelters across the country used the story in their holiday campaigns. "Adopt your own Echo this season. Luis ended up starting a small nonprofit, Echo's Light, dedicated to providing supplies for homeless people with pets. And Jack? Jack found something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose. He started sketching again. Then painting. He painted scenes of the alley, of Echo curled in the snow, of the diner glowing like a lighthouse in the dark. His work caught the attention of a local gallery, and for the first time in decades, someone offered to pay for his art. On the night of his first small exhibition, Jack stood in the back of the room, overwhelmed as people admired his work. "I used to think I was invisible," he said to a reporter who recognized him. "Turns out, I just needed someone to see me." And she did. He looked down at Echo, now wearing a soft gray harness with a tag, Echo Hero Cat. She looked back up, calm and proud. And across every comment section, every news site, every repost, the same words kept coming. This cat didn't just save a man's life. She saved his story. 1 year later, the alley behind Rosie's diner is different now. No longer a forgotten cut-through buried in trash and shadows. It's clean. The bricks are painted with a mural. A man and a small cat sit in the center, drawn in sweeping strokes, surrounded by snowflakes and stars. A small plaque beneath it reads, "In honor of Jack Whitman and Echo, the bond that saved a life and inspired thousands." People still stop by to take photos. Children stare at the cat painted on the wall, pointing and asking, "Is that the hero kitty?" Locals nod with a quiet smile. "Yes," they say. "That's Echo." Inside the diner, Luis pours coffee behind the counter. He's no longer just a waiter, he's the co-owner now. After the story went viral, donations poured in. Rosie, the former owner, retired early and handed it off to him. "Someone with heart should run this place," she said. And Luis made changes. One wall now holds a gallery of framed photos, snapshots from the night Echo ran inside, pictures of Jack's recovery, the mural unveiling. Another corner houses a pet food pantry, free supplies for homeless pet owners. Every so often, Jack visits, Echo in a soft travel carrier slung over his shoulder like a messenger bag. Customers light up when they see her. "She's a legend," someone says. But to Jack, she's more than that. "She's my family." Jack lives in a modest one-bedroom apartment now, still part of the veteran housing community. But his world has grown. He's sold over a dozen paintings. He teaches free art workshops at the center every Thursday. At night, he paints with Echo perched on the windowsill, tail flicking, eyes half closed in a meditative trance. Jack often thinks about that night. The cold, the silence, the moment everything could have ended. But now, when he closes his eyes, it's not darkness he sees. It's Echo's face, her determination, her refusal to give up. Then, one chilly December morning, Jack receives a letter. Not an email, a real letter. The envelope is thick, the return address handwritten in neat cursive. It's from a girl in Ohio, 11 years old. Her name is Emma. "Dear Mr. Jack and Echo, my daddy was a soldier too. He's not here anymore, but I saw your story in a video my mommy showed me." I cried. "But then I smiled because your cat is like an angel. I drew a picture of Echo saving you. It's not perfect, but I hope you like it. I want to help cats when I grow up. Thank you for not giving up. Love, Emma." Inside the envelope is a crayon drawing. Jack and Echo, standing on a snow-covered street. Above them, in childlike lettering, the words, "Sometimes angels have whiskers." Jack stares at it for a long time. Then he frames it and hangs it above his desk. Later that month, Jack and Echo are invited to a local elementary school. The kids had voted to name their winter reading week after her, Echo's Week of Kindness. Jack stands in front of a room full of second graders. Echo nestled in his arms, calm as ever. He shares the story, not just about the cold night and the diner, but about love, loyalty, and being seen. "When you're down," he tells them, "sometimes the one who lifts you up isn't another person. Sometimes it's a friend who doesn't speak your language, but hears your heart. One girl raises her hand. Are you still sad about what happened before you met Echo? Jack pauses. Some days, he admits. But sadness is lighter when you have someone to carry it with you. He looks at Echo. She blinks slowly, as if nodding in agreement. Years pass. Echo grows older. Her pace slows. Her whiskers grow white. But she still curls beside Jack at night. Still watches the street from the window. Still follows him from room to room like a shadow with a soul. Jack paints slower now, too. His arthritis aches in the winter. But the studio is filled with warmth and light, and soft instrumental jazz playing in the background. Every year, on the anniversary of the night, Jack visits the mural. He brings a single flower. He sits for a while, not in grief but in gratitude. He never speaks aloud during these visits. But he knows Echo understands. She always sits beside him, tail neatly tucked, watching the shadows of their former life fade gently behind them. One morning, Jack wakes up to sunlight pouring across the floor. Echo is beside him as always, but something is different. Her breathing is softer, slower. He strokes her fur. You tired, girl? She lifts her head, just barely, and touches her nose to his hand. Then she lays it back down. Jack doesn't leave the house that day. He stays with her, humming an old song under his breath, the one he used to sing to her in the alley on cold nights. That evening, as the sky fades into a soft lavender dusk, Echo takes her last breath, her paw resting gently on Jack's heart. The next few weeks pass like fog. Jack receives hundreds of messages from people who followed their story over the years. She was more than a cat. She was hope. The bond you shared taught me what real love is. She saved you, and reminded us that no life is too small to matter. Jack grieves quietly, but not in despair. He writes a short letter and posts it on the wall of Rosie's diner. To everyone Echo touched. She was just a kitten when we met. Cold, hungry, forgotten. So was I. We gave each other warmth when the world offered none. She saved my life not just once, but every day since. If you've ever loved something more than yourself, you already understand. Echo wasn't just a hero. She was home. Thank you for loving her too, Jack. And so Echo lives on. In the mural, in the children's books, in the shelter outreach program that still bears her name, in every rescued animal, in every veteran finding his way back from the edge, in every alley where hope seems lost, until a small voice meows in the dark. Epilogue. One evening, a boy sits beside his mother on the steps outside Rosie's diner. He points to the mural. Did that really happen? She smiles. Yes, a long time ago, a cat saved a man's life. He thinks for a moment. That's crazy. She shrugs. Maybe. Or maybe love just finds a way. Inside, Jack sips his tea at a back table, watching the sun go down. His hand rests on the cover of a sketchbook. On the first page, a new drawing. Kitten in an alley. A man with kind eyes. A path winding between them, glowing with light. Jack smiles, then begins to draw.